I don't know. I feel like the movie has given us the out. Like that. Oh, speaking of, I see a dog behind you. If you're not watching on YouTube right now, you're missing out on a dog cameo.
He's like, you talking about me?
Is that Tucker? Is that your dog's name?
This is Tucker. I don't know if he'll scoot over. Okay. Oh, he's shy.
He's like, no, don't put me on camera. He's like, you're talking about dogs in here? Mm-hmm.
Welcome, friends, to episode 358 of the Ink to Film podcast, where we read the book and then see the movie. I'm filmmaker James Bailey.
And I'm writer Luke Elliott.
And this week we discuss Marielle Heller's 2024 film, Nightbitch.
And joining us at Book Babies this week is Shayna Hodge, the founder and leader of the Parallel Worlds Bookshop Book Club based in Portland, Oregon, where they are a passionate advocate for creating inclusive spaces and amplifying stories by marginalized authors. Welcome back to the show, Shayna.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Thank you so much for coming back. Last week, we covered the book, the Nightbitch book. And I would point listeners to that episode. If you have not already listened, we dove into some of Shayna's background, and we talked about the book club, Parallel Worlds. We talked about all kinds of stuff. So go check that episode out. And also, we want to join these episodes together, the book and the film. So don't just come for the film. Make sure that you've got all the context coming into this episode.
In many ways, we're continuing the conversation. So definitely check that one out if you haven't. So Shayna, how did you enjoy watching this movie? You've seen it before, right? So this is a second watch?
Yes, I watched it freshly last night for the second time. The first time I got to see it in theater
Cool.
in Portland. So yeah, it was a nice rewatch.
Nice.
Very cool.
This was our first time watching it. It was so interesting to me, like, especially like early on, there was a quote, and it was like literally the quote I read last week.
Yes.
Is almost verbatim in this movie. And I swear I didn't know that. Like, I just happened to pick that. I thought I just picked a random ass quote. I was like, oh, this is a good little quote. And it was like almost word for word in the movie. So I was amazed.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you again for recommending this. We cover this project because it's one that's been like it's affecting as a story. I think it's cool to get these kind of perspectives. I talked about that last week. That like this is not an experience I will have in this life, and it's cool to connect with it in this way. And Amy Adams is just like an excellent performer. So to see her jump on board, and she really championed this from what I was able to see in my research. She was a big part of this film coming into existence in the way it is. And she took some big swings here and some risks, and I think it really worked out for her. And it's been a fun project.
Yeah, and it's one that I think, honestly, I know when we saw it coming out and we talked about this could be a project to do, we were like, we probably need to have a guest on for this one. It just felt like we wanted to round out the perspectives a little bit. So thank you for being that guest for this one.
Of course. I was so excited when they said that there was a movie coming because I think with femme rage and horror, it's so hard to conceptualize into film because everything happens internally. So I was excited to see it put to film, you know?
What are some other like movies in that genre? I know it can be hard to put you on the spot, but like I'm trying to think like femme rage. Ooh. I know it's having a bit of a moment, but do you have any that come to mind immediately?
Actually another Amy Adams series that's also a book, Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn.
We covered that. Love it.
So
my
good.
My favorite Gillian Flynn novel so far. Absolutely love her as an author, and such a great series. Way back when it came out originally, we covered that.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think it's hard to put femme rage literature into film because a lot of femme rage is happening within someone's head, right? Like they lose it, and then you're on their journey with their internal monologue. How do you put that to screen? So as I was driving home from work, I was like, what are other examples? That's the first one that comes to mind. I could give examples of like body horror films, but not. I have some research to do when it comes to more femme rage movies.
Yeah, Gillian Flynn's a great pull though, because like even like Gone Girl, you could say it's got a strong element of that. Yeah,
true.
I haven't seen Dark Places or read Dark Places yet. That's like the one. Is it called Dark Places or Dark Spaces? Something like that. It's like
Places.
Dark Places. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like her depression series. I think it's called. Oh, okay. It's like they're not connected in any way, but they like are her 3 dark books.
Interesting.
Yeah.
James, any more come to mind to you? I feel like you see a lot more new movies than I do.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there's some that are just on the peripheral of my mind. I was thinking about it. I can't pull any right now.
Blink Twice, that Zoe Kravitz directed.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's a recent one.
Well, anyway, let's talk about the one at hand. I feel like the way we cover these things creates a very specific experience for us, especially when it's a first-time book, first-time movie, because we just read the book. So it's very fresh in my mind. And so all the like differences and shifts are like stand out in a way. But also all the like backstory and internal character motivation that you get in the book kind of becomes inherent to the film when I watch it. And I also like, so I think sometimes that affects my viewing too. Like I come in with an experience that most people who just watch the movie aren't going to have. So I'm curious if like this time around, watching it in this way that we do it for the podcast, like, did you feel like it was a different experience at all, or was this just kind of like reminded you of the first time?
I feel like because this time felt like, oh, I really need to like grasp it so that I could talk about it.
That too, yeah.
It's like a little nerve wracking. I'm like, okay, am I actively watching it? Where the first time it was like fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You make a good point though. Every time I read a book first and then go and see a movie, I do wonder if I'm that person that's like, that was different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, they changed that. You know what I mean? Like, does it make me critical in a bad way, or can I enjoy it still? Mm-hmm. Watching it this second time, the first time I remember being like really impressed with how they were able to put it to screen. And then the second time, I fucking hated the husband. Like a lot.
Yeah. So I haven't got a chance to hear our previous week's episode yet, but I remember like talking about how I kind of liked certain aspects of the husband in the book, and I thought he was like a little I can't even remember exactly how I said it. This is the problem of not having heard the episode. But I just remember watching the movie and going, oh my God, this guy's terrible. So I don't know, maybe this version is just way worse, but like this version of the husband was so out of touch and just kind of this doofus. Yeah, we'll get more into, I guess, spoiler area about things that happen with their relationship and by the end, because there are some small changes that we can talk about, and some larger ones too, around the husband and their relationship. And yeah, it's definitely an interesting area, and I think I meant to talk more about the husband last week, and then I forgot to. So we'll definitely have to like revisit the husband as a character and like what role he even plays in this story and why they might have changed some things about it. But yeah, that's a little spoilery. So let's save some of that discussion. I don't know, James, do you want to weigh in?
Well, I would just say like I think generally we can talk about the fact that like there's like a blissful sort of like privilege of like choosing to not to the husband, of choosing to not engage with some of the stuff that's going on. And I think that very heavily was in the book. But I think the film here has an interesting journey with the husband that I think we definitely need to dig into, because I found in some ways that he was more hateable. And,
I thought so.
But you know, and I thought that I didn't like the person last week. I didn't like the husband in the book last week. So there's that.
Yeah.
One thing that I would note too, I think we can talk about this generally, is I like a film that chooses to use text from the page in the film. And in this case, doing that in voiceover, I think was effective. I think voiceover can get a bad rap sometimes in film because it does feel like you're just like spoon feeding the audience what you want these characters to be feeling and everything like that. But in this case, the way that this character is so relatable, I think, to a lot of people, and like hearing the aggravations and hearing like where this character, the mother, where she is, like from scene to scene. And then I love the recurring gag of her lashing out and doing the thing she wants to do, and then just like rewind back to like what she actually does due to like societal parameters or whatever. I think it's a fun way to show that it's something that we've seen in the language of film many times, but I think it's done well here and it's effective. And I felt the VO was welcome. I appreciated getting some of Yoder's words like kind of in the film.
I love that as well. In the grocery store, like right in the beginning, how they use the actual writing on the page as her internal monologue of like that thing that she wants to say and then like goes back. I loved that, because then we still get that internalization of rage. that I was nervous about losing once we go to the screen, you know?
It's a real challenge, and we talk about this quite often on this podcast because so many books, right, have so much internal thought that it's so important to what makes that character work on the page and what makes that story work. And I agree that for this one, this is one of those ones where you're like, yeah, you got to have some of it because some of this stuff, it just isn't going to make sense to have the character say. Like, really, these are more thoughts. Also, like, the character is looking for a voice, looking for an outlet, and is in many ways being silenced, right? And so this is a way to show that. And in fact, like, sometimes it is voiceover, but other times it's not even voiceover. It's like the scene plays out, and then, like you said, we rewind and kind of show what actually happened. I agree that I thought this was effective, and in fact, early on in my notes, I was like, "Oh, I love this little technique they're doing." It reminds me of a movie that I meant to mention last week and forgot, and then the movie actually ended up reminding me of it even more. But I felt like over time it started to wear a little thin, and it had an unfortunate side consequence of whenever something surreal would happen, it immediately gave me the out of like, well, that's not really what happened. Like, we've shown many times that whenever something weird happens, it's not really what's going on. We're going to rewind and show what actually happened. Or maybe we won't, but even still, like, I'm to assume that's not really what's happening. And it reminded me that in the book, that wasn't really the case. Like, so often we were just left with this ambiguous feeling of, like, did that actually happen? Did she actually say that? Did she actually do that? And in many ways, I felt like that ambiguity is where that book thrived. And some of the movie choices like pulled away from the ambiguity and just kind of gave us a fantasy of what was happening, but like the safety and the knowledge that it didn't actually go there. And it kind of changes the tone a little bit for this movie based off compared to the book, which we can return to, I guess, when we get into more spoilers. But the movie I wanted to acknowledge, and this is an interesting one. It's an interesting pull, but a little bit of American Psycho going on, I thought, with Nightbitch. Okay. Just in the like this like rich inner world that is often violent, goes against like societal norms. Of course, very opposite messaging going on here, but like this character who's in their own head, but in some ways not, right? Like there's some carryover and crossover here, and I don't know, like I kind of wish this was a little more of the American Psycho film, which like I know is divisive, but like is a daring movie that is very interesting. I ended up giving a presentation about it at OMSI one time, which is a random thing that happened, but it was very fun. And like I don't necessarily, it's not like my favorite movie or anything, but like I think it's a very interesting movie directed by a woman, and she came in and made a very memorable, like biting film that people talk about to this day. And I wanted a little more of that kind of movie from this movie. And I feel like it falls a little short, which I'm going to go ahead and open with my little bit of criticisms. I'm going to have some criticisms.
No, I love that.
I think this movie falls a little short of what it could have been if we had maybe gone there a little more.
Comparing it to American Psycho, though, is a complete, like, absolute compliment, first of all.
Okay.
Like,
was it Mary Herron? That's Mary Herron. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree that the film decided to have a different lens on this. There is a significant amount of ambiguity still in the film, but it plays differently because all of it isn't ambiguous, because like there are times that it's like, oh, that's clearly not happening, like you said. But yeah, the shift of the entire film becomes one that in my opinion is like a little neater. And I think what Luke, I think you already said, maybe Shayna, you said this as well, is like the thing that I loved from the book is just how kind of it took us to that edge, and there was that like unflinching look at a lot of these things, and the way that the character isn't, I don't think that Yoder was worried about how the character was going to be perceived. And I think the film made it a little more palatable to a general audience in a sense. But we can dig into a lot of the reasons why, but that's kind of my general outlook on the film, while also saying I think this is still going to be important for a lot of people. I think this will still connect with a lot of people.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like the target audience for the film changed maybe than what the book was intended for, in my heart of hearts.
Can you define what those audiences are?
Well, I think like without spoilering or like how it all gets wrapped up in a bow in the end of the film, the book doesn't feel like that to me. It's more of like a snapshot of this woman finding her identity around being an artist and a mother, and it's not like a happy ending. But the movie does something different, which I feel like changes the tone of it, and maybe it's more of like a you can do it. And that's not really the first film. That's not how the book left me feeling. Not that it left me feeling like you can't do it.
Yeah.
But it was just more of like, this is how very real it is. The other thing that I want to add is when I read unreliable narrators, I want the narrator to be unreliable in the film too. And like you said, because it would go back and forth between, oh, this is the fake thing, and then resume to the reality. It takes away from the narrator being unreliable.
Yeah. And like some of those scenes are pretty similar to American Psycho scenes, right? Where like Patrick Bateman says something, and then it's unclear whether or not he even said it, and like maybe the person he said it to just didn't hear him, or they thought he was joking because there's like no reaction to it. But it's still kind of ambiguous, and it's like maybe he did say it. I don't know. Like, and to me, so many times this movie, like, she would say the thing, but then it would get reversed, and we would know, okay, she didn't actually say that, or she didn't actually do that. So I don't know. It just felt like it wanted to have scenes like that, but it didn't quite lean into that ambiguity quite as much as I would have liked.
Yeah, it's funny though too, because like there are moments where they don't do the rewind in the film. Like I would say, without
That's
spoiling, like there's the scene with her grad school friends, and like she does what she does in the book.
Yeah, she doesn't flip the table, but yeah.
But again, close. I guess that is still kind of making it a choice. Like instead of it being like, it was still somewhat ambiguous in the book, and here it's like, well, by not rewinding, you're saying that this did happen this way, so it's kind of having it both ways.
Definitely true, and that's totally fair, because like I'm not saying it does this every time. It's just there was like a tendency to do this more than anything.
And same with like the running and being caught dirty. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It happens. You're like, did that happen? Well, she's dirty and she's being seen dirty outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, honestly, the transformation aspect of it, the dog stuff in general. So I don't know if this is true. Maybe you're going to tell me something in the description for this film that is going to say this is definitely not true, but it felt to me like someone wanted to tell this story of how difficult motherhood is, and like how silencing it can be, and how soul-crushing it can be in some ways, and how it can make you want to act out and lash out. And maybe it wasn't as enamored with this whole metaphor. And so like it was a vehicle to tell the story, but like that part of the book felt a little underserved in the movie for me. It was like, I don't know, I was left feeling a little like underwhelmed with like where that ended up going, and like some of those scenes, like, I don't know, they just felt a little more out of place, whereas they were so like essential to what was happening in the book. It's hard to really talk about this without specifics.
Just in terms of that though, like the like body horror aspects, and like some, like how did those strike you? And then in general, like with the transformation stuff, like did the metaphor track here? I know we're saying that like maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but like, do you think that ultimately like audiences are going to connect with that portion of it, and like that sort of like domestication commentary?
I think the part, and you heard me say this last week, around like a mother's labor or a parent's labor at home, and the deviation of labor and output at home, and how misunderstood it is, and the amount that this person is doing when they're a stay-at-home parent. I think that is like very clear, and that is something also this does kind of come up in the film, and she mentions it in the book as well, where like parents, because of the way that we live in society and what capitalism has done to us, we do not get the opportunity and luxury to choose. Like, if you want to work and have a nanny and do XYZ, the amount of money that you have to do everything and to have all of these opportunities requires a lot of privilege. And so I feel like that does show up in the film, because you're meeting different characters who have those different experiences. One of the characters is a stripper. Loved her. We meet another character who's like has a kid, and she's like, yeah, well, the nanny, and da 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 da. And so you're meeting these snapshots of different pieces of the puzzle of what types of options there are based on your own privilege.
Yeah, I agree. I thought all that stuff was effective, and I think as far as like, you're asking like, where are people going to connect with it? I think so. When I'm being critical, it's like I'm trying to say I want to push this movie, if I could, push it into a place where I think it would reach more people and maybe be more affecting. But I'm not trying to minimize someone who might have watched this movie and had a profound experience. That absolutely can happen, and I think there's enough here that can totally lend itself to that. I would say if you love this movie, you should absolutely check out the book because it adds a lot more to this part of the conversation, I think, which obviously is the case in many films that we cover, but I think definitely true here.
Yeah. One last aspect that I kind of asked about, but I asked a two-parter, the body horror.
Oh, yeah.
What do we think in terms of like, did it work for you? Was it affecting? Did it make you squirm a little bit?
I wanted more.
Same. Yeah, like that one scene with the tail, gross. Very gross. And I was like, wow, okay, so we're going there. But then, like, it felt like we didn't get much more of that. Like, we got the transformation scene, which was, like, okay. Not the most, like, I mean, there are a lot of iconic werewolf transformation scenes in film that are quite visceral. This one didn't quite approach those levels for me, whereas it could have.
Well, I mean, arguably, too, it's not trying to be a werewolf, right?
Right.
It's
I'm
right.
like,
A dog, yeah.
Right. But, I mean, just the transformation could have been more body horror-esque, whereas this... I don't know. It felt like it went for the gross out in that one moment, but then like the rest of the movie didn't really try and gross us out much. And again, I think that lines up with my thought that like I don't think this movie is interested in the horror aspects of that book. This much more felt like it is I don't know, just a metaphor, and we're going to tell a story. There's some comedy, maybe a little more comedy in the movie too than we even got in the book. But the horror elements of it just seemed kind of underserved.
I will say my fiance did not appreciate some of the body horror. It made her squirm for sure. She was like,
well,
tell me when
tail
it's
thing
over.
is fucking gross.
A couple times, yeah. The tail, there was another one too. I can't remember what the other is right now off the top of my head, but it'll come to me.
The popping thing?
That was the tail.
That's the tail. That's the tail.
Yeah, that's the tail, yeah.
What was the other one?
There could have been, there was like the pulling of the hairs at the very start, maybe.
My partner is like a huge Cronenberg fan. All Cronenberg. The son and the dad. Everyone's invited.
Yeah. The Cronenbergs.
all the Cronenbergs are invited. And we watched it together, and he was like, "Nope, that's my limit." But I actually wasn't that grossed out. I think like the pregnant body is like such a force, and so like that kind of some of the stuff I just was like, okay, and the nipples maybe that was kind of weird.
Oh yeah.
There were a lot of nipples.
But again, by that point, like it was maybe because I'd read the book, but like I really felt like the movie had been telling us that this isn't real. So when I saw the nipples, I wasn't as like struck with that, like as I felt like I could have been with this imagery if I had believed this was something actually happening to her. Like I think the movie gave us a lot of like ways to just like, I don't know, not feel uncomfortable because we're like, nah, it's not real. She's just imagining this.
I think that people will still walk away with this sort of idea of like the way that there's like a taboo around women's bodies and the change and the transformation and everything. It's there. And I think that they did some steps towards the body horror being there. But even like there's a big moment that we talked about last week that was significantly changed to be more
let's save that
digestible.
I think we're ready. I think we're ready to get into spoilers.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so the filmmaker is Marielle Heller. She's an American director, screenwriter, and actress. She's best known for directing the films The Diary of a Teenage Girl, Can You Ever Forgive Me, and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, as well as acting in The Queen's Gambit. So those last two are she's the adoptive mother in The Queen's Gambit.
I can't pull a face, but I've seen the Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, she's the character that like takes her in and then like lets her be like an individual and be unique and all that, and like kind of as her friend and also her parent at a point.
I do remember the character. I can't pull a face for it though. It's just like there was a figure who did some things. I can't remember which one.
We were talking about the scene at the beginning of the film in the grocery store. There's another mother that's on the other aisle contending with like two different children. That's a director cameo. That's what she
nice.
Like. Yeah,
love that.
I love that.
So that's what she looks like.
Are those her actual kids?
That I'm not sure about. I should have dug a little deeper on that. Okay. But definitely her.
Me too.
So yeah, she had a lot of success as an actor. before moving into and acting on the stage and in films and TV, and then eventually would become a director. She wrote and directed Diary of a Teenage Girl. It's based on a 2002 graphic novel, so something we could cover at some point. The graphic novel's titled The Diary of a Teenage Girl, an Account in Words and Pictures by Phoebe Glockner.
I feel like, is that the one I heard that was, I felt like one of these was like an indie darling. Was that, it would have been that one?
The film premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2015 and received a limited release in theaters. She was selected as a Sundance Screenwriting Fellow back in 2012, and then she used a lot of that fellowship and the financing and some of the other stuff she was able to pull together to actually get that film made. And it won the Grand Prix at the Berlin International Film Festival. It was named for Independent Spirit Award, so like it was definitely hit pretty well in the indie community. She went on to direct a few other things, wrote some scripts, and then eventually she directed A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is the film that Tom Hanks starred in as Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
I never saw that, but I remember there was like 2 Mr. Rogers movies that came out, right? Like one was a documentary and one was like a biopic or something.
One was a doc. Yeah, this was more of a biopic.
This was the biopic. Okay.
It was, yeah. Yeah, she directed that. She met and connected with Tom Hanks because she had a connection to Colin Hanks, his son. So kind of an interesting connection there. She's drawn to stories about people trying to talk about something that people are uncomfortable talking about, human beings trying to navigate through the world. And she said that becoming a mother made her change the kind of stories she tells because she wanted to, quote, do good in the world. So it's interesting to think of this and when she was developing this. So Amy Adams early on saw this in a manuscript form before it was ever published. And she took that and kind of championed it with a couple other producers, and they had hand selected Heller as who they wanted to direct the film. And so during the pandemic, this is what they were working on. Amy Adams and Heller, some of these other producers, this is what they spent their pandemic, lockdown doing, basically, is working on this project and trying to get it made. And then it's interesting because as it inches along its production route, the writer's strike also affected it and pushed it off for a year. And so, for a good cause, obviously, but it's the pandemic and then the writer's strike and all these other things. And then the film is eventually still made, which is kind of a miracle. And I think we definitely have Amy Adams to thank for that, because she said it affected, when she read Yoder's work, she felt that it was so true and so biting and so necessary of a story to tell, and then just really wanted to make sure that it got made. And she felt that Heller, during the pandemic or around the time this was going on, she was living in a cabin with her husband and had just had a child, and so they're living in a cabin in close quarters, all of the stuff during a lockdown, and that, I guess, she drew on a lot of that in the creation of this film, as we can see. And I saw that Yoder talked about some reception to the film in general, like how she felt about it. And she said that she was really pleased with the direction that the film took. She liked it, but she specifically said that she liked that Heller kind of made it her own, which I think we can all see that this is an adaptation. This is something that Heller was drawing on her own experiences to bring to screen. So it's not necessarily, now we're talking about Amy Adams' experience, Rachel Yoder's experience, and Marielle Heller's experiences. So all 3 of them together is what we see on screen here. And I read that Amy Adams had a comment about some of the changes and Marielle's vision on it versus Yoder's vision. She and I are both very pragmatic, but we also really believe in our experience of motherhood, and that it's one of optimism and great hope. We look for that, and that's where we wanted to leave. We didn't want to leave the movie with a negative comment, because our experience and what we believe about parenthood is very positive. We wanted to uplift the experience. So I think that inherently is kind of shifting some of what we're talking about.
That's what I hear. I hear we're moving into a little bit more of a positive, uplifting space at the end when I hear that, which is valid. I don't know. I think that's a little different than the book. So if you're looking for the more pure experience of the book, that's a change. Now, as we are well on record, we don't always think that a faithful adaptation is the best one, and often a adaptation that changes things dramatically can sometimes be, either equally good or even better. But I think that is a noteworthy development right there, because you can tell that creatively pushes the movie in a different direction.
That's the tone that we're talking about, right? Is the tone is so different. And I think it's that bow that I mentioned. Like, there's a bow wrapped on it at the end of the movie.
Just wrapping up with Marielle Heller. In 2020, she was listed among others as one of the several female directors snubbed for Academy Awards and Golden Globes nominations for Best Directing, as only men were nominated. Fellow director Greta Gerwig, who also was not nominated, included Heller in her list of women who could have been competing for the Golden Globe. Actress Natalie Portman, as a sign of protest, wore a dress embroidered with the names of these women, including Heller, on the 2020 Oscars red carpet.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, also in her personal life, I found that comedian Jorma Taccone is her husband.
I don't think I know
he's
that.
one of the 3 members of The Lonely Island.
Oh, which one? Well, not I know one of them. So
not
it's
Andy
one of the
Samberg.
other two.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yes, exactly. You would recognize him, obviously.
I'm sure. Yeah.
If you knew the name, you would. It's Jorma, and I forget the other's name right now. But I just think it's funny and something interesting to note as some of the commentary about the husband comes into play. Like I read an article and it was funny because Heller was talking about how like Jorma was like, "Hey, I'm not that bad about some of these things going on with the husband," and that kind of like the joking back and forth and some of the commentary there. And I don't know. I thought that was pretty fun to hear.
I'm having a flashback. There's an Andy Samberg interview where he talks about being a new parent, and he's like joking, but he's like, whenever like when you're going through the pregnancy period and you're meeting other parents, they're like so excited. They're like, "Yes, come join us. Like we're with us and our kids." And then as soon as you have the kid, they're all like, "Ha ha, suckers!" Like, where? It's like a huge trick, and so that's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think that's like it does seem to be the case. Like I've seen closely some of my friends that have had children, and they're like, I see how, and they're like, but it's so worth it in so many ways, and this and that, and I'm like, I understand why it's so fulfilling, but from the outside looking in right now, where I'm at in the world, it sounds very, very intense and really difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, this article, we'll link it in the show notes, but there's an article where Rachel Yoder is being asked about some of the press and the things that went on with the development of the film. And this is what they asked. The interviewer had read that after one of the screenings of the movie, a man in the audience asked Amy Adams if she had considered making a movie about a father who has to go to work and worries if he can support his family or not. So she's asking Rachel Yoder if she heard about that, and Rachel Yoder said, "No, I haven't heard about that, but I'm curious to hear what that was like." And the interviewer says, "So apparently they both," and so this is the director was up there as well. Heller was there as well with Amy Adams, and the interviewer says, "So apparently they both responded with guffaws." Heller said that she had been asked a similar question by another man who then said, "When do we get the husband's movie?" I'm sure there are some men who have watched this movie and they took it as a learning experience. They took it as a way to say like, "Wow, I had no idea that was going on internally." I just thought that was a funny thing to note, that there of course are going to be people who cannot grasp why this is an important film and why that's the reason there. I think Rachel Yoder says as much in her response. She says, "Yeah, isn't that interesting that it's not about a mother and her struggles, but it's about how her needs are offensive to her husband. And I think that's why we need the movie."
Mm-hmm.
You just ruined my Tuesday.
But of course there was someone out there like that, and I just can't. It's so funny to me that I'm like, you mean, because my immediate response to that would have been, you mean every other movie?
Yeah, it's
you mean like
every,
like every movie where a husband is stressed out?
Wow. Well, anyway, that was awful.
Awful news. Awful news all around.
I'm sad. I'm sorry that happened. Someone completely missed the point, but that's going to be the case with a movie like this. I mean, it is inherently dealing with a very like hot button issue. It's intersecting with a lot of like social things that are still being discussed in this country, and gender politics, I guess. And you're gonna rankle some people when you do that. But it's so funny because once again, I think this movie like still comes down on a just much more palatable side of these things.
Yeah.
And yet you still are gonna see some strong reactions to it, I'm sure.
There's this famous saying in film of like, you don't want to work with kids and animals, and this film is just covered in kids and animals.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So I noted that like a lot of the animals in the film were actually really there. They were physical, trained animals.
Some good animal acting going on here.
I thought for sure some good animal acting, but I do love sometimes when you can see the trainer off screen, with the tree, and the dogs are looking around for it. But I appreciated it being there. Like I like the lived it, like that real grounded experience.
Thank you for not doing CGI dogs, because that takes me out of it more than anything.
And then it's like, do you have the budget to even do it? No. Do the dogs look weird? And yeah,
I think I saw somewhere that the kid was played by twins.
Yeah, I think so.
That's usually the case. I think it's like a way to get around the limitations in shooting, because you can't have a kid for more than a certain amount of hours on set. So if you have twins, you can rotate them in and out.
It's like a different age bracket thing too. It's like as they get older, they can work for a little longer and stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, with really young kids, not to mention like just their attention span isn't there. So of course, true. Like it was cool to hear Amy Adams and Heller talk about how there was so much like kind of improvising on set and just kind of like being open to the experience of like, because when you're working with 3-year-olds,
that kid is so young. I can't imagine those were like. He's not reciting lines, right? Like he's just
some of the time
he's doing stuff, and then maybe
some of the time he is, but then oftentimes like any of the interaction from parent to child and grabbing and playing and all the other stuff that's happening is kind of all just like whatever's going to happen here is going to end up in the film, and we got to get like good takes of it. So I thought that was notable as well. It's like they broke the rules. They were like, let's have a bunch of pets and a bunch of children. And honestly, I thought that they got some pretty like I would call them even child performances out of these kids, to where like I felt like it worked. Like,
well, it works because you're not trying to get them to do like heavy emotional lifting a lot. That's where sometimes child acting can fall down and like But usually you're getting like an 8 or a 10-year-old or something who's like trying to convey sadness or something, and sometimes it can feel a little flat. But like this kid was just there to like wreak havoc and kind of be cute, I guess, at times.
With a child that young, I need to believe that they're mother and child.
Yeah.
And I did. Like, I did believe that Amy Adams' character was this child's mother. Like, the way that she, like, innately and naturally, like, worked with him and, like, navigated and seamlessly, they had symbiotic relationship. I was like, is that Amy Adams' child? Like, IRL.
Yeah. You're right. It was very believable. And, like, I don't know, there's like an intimacy thing of like holding a child and kissing a child and like being around a child in that way, and the child looking and seeming comfortable, not like standoffish. And I think that they probably did a lot of work to build up that relationship before filming. All right, moving into the plot now. Mother has paused her career as an artist to become a stay-at-home mom for her 2-year-old son. Because her husband is away on work trips most of the time, she is responsible for the majority of the caregiving for the boy. Feeling isolated from her artistic identity and resentful of what she sees as the expectation to be friends with other mothers, she frequently fantasizes about lashing out at those around her. She begins to experience surreal physical changes, including patches of fur on her body, the growth of a tail and additional nipples, and heightened senses. Although she initially dismisses these developments as symptoms of emotional stress and perimenopause, she soon becomes convinced that she is turning into a dog.
All right, so our setup is there. I think we've kind of touched on a lot of these topics so far, but I guess like early film, we're introducing this character, we're setting up the stakes here. What were your thoughts? And this is, to me, where it feels very similar to the book so far. There's not a lot of deviation here, but yeah, what were your early thoughts?
I loved seeing her. I loved when the kid said the F word at the library.
Perfect. Yeah.
That's not actually what I was going to say, but it's something that's in my head. Like him just like saying it over and over again.
And people were like aghast, and like I guess that would happen, but like I feel like everyone would just laugh. Like, right? Like wouldn't we all just laugh if that happened? I don't know.
I do think that like, I think a lot of parents probably have this story too, and it's probably pretty mortifying. And like she says in the film, like she's like, I'm such a bad mom right away. She's saying all this kind of stuff and holding herself accountable for that kind of thing.
I think the part that I really loved outside of that little like comedic part was her like talking about all the other moms, how she wanted, like, she didn't want to be friends with that mom, but she wanted to be friends with the cool mom, like whatever that meant, like for like her identity and like who she wanted to be or who she looked up to. I loved this like hyperfixation of people that she was simply comparing herself to.
Yeah, and that to me underlines how I think this movie in some ways can be viewed as like a journey of her going from isolation to community, right? And that she meets these women that she at first is like, I don't want to be friends with them. It's so gross to be friends over being a mother and like bonding over being a mother. Whereas I think that's like exactly what they bond over. You could argue. I will say I found these women to be cool kind of side characters, but like, I don't know. I wanted a little more out of this relationship that I think we got in the book. It's like that's one of the things I was missing a little bit more of. Like when
you were missing
the gens, what did you say, James?
I said you were missing the MLM.
Yeah.
The MLM stuff. Yeah, honestly, like a little more of that, right? Like even the 3 dogs that we see, and we get the one connection where she smells strawberries and then she connects that to them. That felt like we didn't like follow up on that. Like. She never really kind of explored, like, are you actually turning into dogs, which was like a whole plot point in the book of like her trying to find out if this was really happening. Because at that point, I think we were all kind of like, yeah, it's not really happening. So again, it just felt like there was some cool setup here, but I wish they had followed through with it a little more, I guess, as it goes. And we also do get some stuff with the mother, I wanted to point out. I don't remember in the book if it was clear that the mother was part of this, like, what is it? Mennonite. Community, but that is the case with the author because I know we talked about it.
Yeah.
And so it seems like they took maybe some of the author's background and put it into the movie, which is an interesting choice.
It did seem that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting how it turned like a bit witchy in there with like the spell,
maybe like a spell being done in the kitchen,
in the cauldron. One other thing that I'll note too in terms of like, I was worried about this change for a period is like, but I think it's so effective and so clever for the film is how long into the film it is before we see the husband. I was like, is the husband even in this film? And that's like that's like, especially as an anticipating book reader, I was like, I mean, the husband's got to be in this film. Like, where, like, has she's doing this all alone? Are they gonna change this to be a single mother thing? And then like to have it actually like time wise in the film for him to be like revealed eventually. Audiences who didn't read the book are going to be like, holy shit, there's a husband this whole time and she's been struggling so hard. Like, where has he been? And I think that I thought that was well executed.
Agreed.
Who is that actor that played the husband?
He has he has like one of the best names in Hollywood. It's like Scooter McCreery or something like that, right?
Okay, well, Scooter.
I think it's something like that. We should look and confirm it, but I think it's something like that.
Let me double check it.
We're calling him Scooter.
Scoot McNairy. Honestly,
Scoot McNairy. Isn't that the best? No. He's one of the best names.
Yeah, we can call him Scooter. I think he'd be fine with it.
Probably Scooter's probably what his friends call him.
Scooter, I think he's typecast to be like a weird little guy. Yeah. Like in other films, and so he like kind of bugs me. And so like even if I wasn't paying attention to what he was saying as this character, I was like, you're bugging me.
I will say, I just for the sake of argument, I thought that he did a good job with the role. Like I thought he was extremely hateable, which he was supposed to be. So I'll give the actor credit where credit's due.
And I will say, like, as much as we're shitting on the husband, I do think the film intends you to think that he's still a good guy, or at least a decent guy, which is a line that came up in the book, right? Where she's like, he's a good man.
I saw an article that used the term that I'm gonna steal and take and bring into the podcast now, which is weaponized incompetence. Yeah, and that's like, I think
this is not the first time y'all have heard of that, right?
No, but I just like that as a term that's being used to describe this character, because that's exactly what through the book and the film is just, that's what the character is doing is what do you want me to do? I don't know how to use the coffee. How many scoops in the coffee machine? Like all these things. It's like to figure it out. But again, I think that's what Shayna was talking about with that, the mental workload and some of like the division of labor in that way.
Yeah, that was a brilliant part where he goes to the shower and she goes to lay down and like just keeps getting interrupted with like some inane question.
When you're not here, I do this by myself. Yes, you do. Oh my God. It's so good. That is just a snapshot. I think something that's so important, I get so riled up about this. I think something that's so important is that he's not a bad guy. He is just the majority of the decent guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's like kind of damning in and of itself, right? Like, it's not that he's a terrible person, because again, if he had been a terrible person, then that's kind of what you hang your hat on. You're like, well, of course he's terrible. That's why he's this way. But instead, it's like he's not. It's just, this is just something that happens. Like, and I think rightfully the sort of role that society plays in all of this is brought up early on too, because this is kind of what we've set up for ourselves so often. And even she kind of acknowledges that she is like, she kind of bought into it, right? She has regrets now, but she's like, yeah, I agreed for that on this. I didn't know what I was getting into. but she acknowledges that she's like, I wish I could go back and talk to that version of myself, and I would tell her to come up with a more equitable situation.
And I do think one of the interesting nuances to that is that his response to that is, and I would have been open to that.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's very interesting. Like he probably would have been open to it. And so it's just about like a communication thing or like, it's like we've said, like in general, being more aware of like what you're,
that speaks to something larger, just like gender roles in general, right? Like so often we can fall into things if we don't think about it, right? It can become like default because it's familiar. And that's why like challenging that stuff can be so important, but also like something you have to actively do. Because like I feel like if you just don't think about it and go through the motions, sometimes it can be just very easy to mimic what you saw from your parents maybe, or what you've seen in a lot of media, or what you see around you all the time. And gender is a thing, and gender roles in general is something that like, I don't know. For a long time, it felt like untouchable, and I've of course loved like art that challenges that, and that's at the heart what this is. So I don't know. I love that part of it, I guess. So I don't know if this counts as like the beginning, but this is bringing me up to a point that I definitely want to talk about because I think it's kind of a pivot point for this, for this character, the husband. The reaction he gives when she starts talking about how, maybe I just need to not be an artist anymore. Like I realize I'm not an artist anymore, and maybe I just need to be happy with that and like not pursue it. And he just goes, okay, yeah, if that's what you want. Like I wanted to wring his neck. I was like, what are you doing? This is the worst thing you can say in this moment. And like, this is what the biggest shift in the relationship happens, I think, after this. And then it eventually leads to their separation, which we'll get to. But this was where I was like, oh, this is a slightly different version, because I didn't feel like the husband in the book would have said that. Like, I think he was just like a little more, I don't know, like, I think there's a reason the separation doesn't happen in the book, because that version of the husband is someone who goes on the journey more closely with her in a sense. And I'm talking like it's a matter of degree, but I don't know. I ended up liking the separation for this version of the husband. I was like, this guy you absolutely need to separate with, and I don't know. I mean, we're in spoilers.
Because he needs to learn a lesson.
He needs to learn, and like
about
I don't
labor.
even know if I like that they get back together. I was just trying to say, like, I found it moving, and we can get there at the end, but like, I don't know. We'll see. This version of the husband was much different, and I had much less sympathy for. And I think Rachel Yoder's love for her actual husband maybe was coming through a little bit in the book, because it's clear she had very complicated feelings about it, but was like maybe like wanting to like establish like why she's probably still married, like like why would you even stay with a guy? And like I don't know, maybe some of that came across, whereas here like I don't know, this guy.
Well, I wonder how do you take like these micro engagements that are all happening in her head where she's like taking stock of the inequity at home, right? Like we're witnessing it through like her internal monologue, and you're like, yeah, that you're right. But like we need to see it on screen. Like I can't just like, how else would we learn that there were these inequities happening at home if it wasn't for us witnessing them with our eyes? Did it have to go as far as him like being like, yeah, you should quit art? That's a waste. Like, I think there's even a line where he said where something like art doesn't add anything to like what we've got here. Like this is what you're supposed to be doing.
I think she might say that, and then he agrees with it.
Yes.
Because so often he's so passive, and he just kind of he's like, I think he thinks his role is just to agree with her. And it's like, dude, that's not your role.
But so in my analogy, like when we look at the labor, like his support for her, that's what she needed. Like that's the labor she was requiring from him in that moment, and he couldn't even do that. Yeah, because he couldn't even support her emotionally with words.
Clearly, this is like a cry for help, or like I'm struggling, and this is where I'm feeling, and like these are the dark thoughts I'm having. I need you to help me move away from these. And instead, he reinforces them. It's so bad.
And I wonder if having those moments with him on film were the way to like for us to witness and see those inequalities, because we're not inside of her head.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that was definitely the thinking. And like I'm not even saying that like I necessarily think this is worse than the book. It's just different. And it leads me to have less sympathy for the husband, which maybe isn't a bad thing. But I guess it's just the way that this will come back for me is the end, whereas like I don't know how I feel about how things get repaired between them.
One thing that I wanted to note too, as far as the film, is like the strength of the medium is like and I'll throw this to you. Did you feel like the chaos and the repetition and all the other things, the techniques that were employed early on with like being in that scenario, isolated in the house, dealing with the child and what it's like to speak to a child who's developing social skills and everything like that, did that work for you?
The first time that I saw it, I really liked it. And I think the second time I felt that it was redundant and it didn't give me, like, I want to be angry too. Like we're talking about femme rage. Like I want to walk out angry too. I hated the guy, but I didn't walk out with the same level of like rage the first time I saw it.
I guess I was specifically talking about like the first third here where we're living the experience that the mother character is, where it's like this repetition. Because for me, it was quite stressful. Sequence. Yeah, it was quite stressful for me.
Oh, I like that.
The montage. Her cooking the hash browns over and over again.
Yes.
That was effective. And like I kind of wanted a little more of that kind of stuff throughout the movie. A little more.
Well, that was giving horror, kind of.
A little more
like
horror.
What was gonna
domestic horror.
Yeah. And I liked that. I liked not knowing, I'd read the book, knowing what could be. I was like, this is creepy and weird. And I like that.
So this leads up to the Dare to Be Stupid montage, which I thought was another pretty good one. And that's where she's like starting to lean into the doggy playtime a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that. So she gets a dog bed for the son, and he sleeps in the dog bed, which is a change. I think there might be some sort of bed, but like there was a kennel. And the dogs and the son slept in a kennel. So again, it's like a little bit softer. Like clearly the kid's like very comfortable in that bed. It looked like a nice little dog bed. Like I don't think many people are as like shocked at the image of this boy sleeping in the dog bed. Whereas if that boy had crawled into a dog kennel, I think there would have been a stronger reaction.
Yeah. I would have liked to see it make an appearance, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Yorgos Lanthimos film. Different.
Yes.
It's a different vibe.
Yes. All right, so moving forward in the plot here, she begins to dream about her childhood in Mennonite society, including memories of her mother running on all fours and concocting stews with unusual ingredients. Seeking understanding, Mother visits the library to check out a book about mythical transformations, reinforcing her belief in her metamorphosis. Embracing her new identity, she adopts increasingly canine behaviors, finding liberation from societal expectations and a renewal of her artistic passions. She has her son play with dogs, eat from dog bowls, and sleep in a dog bed, which calms him down and allows him to sleep through the night as she envisions herself transforming into a dog to run free. During these transformations, she kills small animals, including the family's pet cat.
Okay, so let's put a pin in that. Early on in there, you'd mentioned a thing that I'm surprised we haven't talked about yet, and that's the changes around this book. She gets it from the librarian, but we only get like maybe 2 passages. We hear about the bird women. It seems a little bit less present in the story. And then the mystery of is this author even real is instead swapped for a mystery of like, where did this book come from? I guess because the librarian says we didn't actually give this to you. What was your read on that whole situation in the movie, at least?
You go ahead.
Well, for one, I thought that it was quite interesting the way that they used the librarian, and I think to differing levels of success. I liked that there was a mystery around this character. I liked that we're seeing some ambiguity with this character, right? And I specifically love the scene of when she feels self-conscious about doing the dog stuff at lunch. The librarian is who comes up and says, hey, I remember being a dog and with my son, and she does the whole interaction. That was from the book. But I think that there's enough plausible deniability in this film that this character might not exist. Because of the ways that things, or maybe she exists, but maybe there are scenes that things are happening with her that she actually didn't take part in. Which I liked because I think that's hearkening back to some of my favorite stuff from the book.
I agree. I like to believe that the librarian is just a librarian and the relationship that she has with her and the finding of the book is not happening, really. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's also in the beginning when she finds the book, there's like this like fantasy like unravel of the book that's like there's like drums and like all this stuff, and then that doesn't really ever happen again. The book played such a I would say, crucial part of the storytelling in the book. The book that's so meta. That it only gets brought up a few times, which I feel like they rely more on the librarian's presence than I think the little fairy tale book or whatever it is, ethnography of wild women, right?
Even some of the letters that she was sending in the original work, I think that has been subbed in, like the librarian has been subbed in for a lot of that, like a lot of the conversation around some of those topics. But I don't think it goes quite as far. And in interesting ways, I think her mother is brought back into it in almost a different way as well. I thought that like the way that the book was used here was going to tie back into the mother in a major way. Like the mother, there was another book that the mother had given her that was like in a different language or something. And then this other book, and I thought they were going to be one and the same, and this was all going to like kind of connect. But I don't think those like kind of pieces ever came together like that, right?
I would have loved that.
Yeah, the mother and her connection to the book is an interesting point, right? Because it seems to me like they were hinting at maybe there's like a secret society of magic women. And the librarian is like the gatekeeper to this. And I've welcomed you in with this book. And then I'm going to be like, oh, it's not our book. I don't know what you're talking about. But then she's like, you figured out the way. Like she says some like pointed stuff to her later that makes it seem like you figured something out. Or so like I liked that. But again, I agree. It felt like these dots weren't like connected. And like maybe her mother was a part of this. But like we don't see that. And then the mother in the book, I think there was even like a nod to her because there was a woman off stage. If I can remember, there was like this performance that was given, and there was a woman off stage who was singing but couldn't be seen. And I thought that was like a nod to her mother because I think she was singing in like a different language that her mother could speak or something. I can't remember exactly, but I remember thinking it was powerful that she was bringing in her mother and how like it was clear to me that she had a lot of complicated feelings about like the way she was raised. And how she had some anger around, like, why didn't you prepare me for some of this? But then over the course of the book, started to have sympathy for her and, like, understood the sacrifices that she made and started to interpret some of her behaviors as, like, oh, maybe that's why you did these certain things. And I thought that was effective in the book. I think in the movie, it's like it wanted to go there, too, but it ultimately didn't. Again, this is like one of the elements that felt a little bit abandoned. Like, we kind of got to a certain point with it, and then we just kind of leave it. And it doesn't come home for me and like really resonate.
I think that's really well said. I think you're right. It was like, to me, it felt thrown in. I didn't even think that the two books could be related, but I love that that would like close the loop on it. It felt like they were trying to add context that we know is in the book, but it almost seemed unnecessary. I don't know if I needed it in the film. Like we could have had it could have given all of the same, it would have landed exactly the same for me without the mother part.
Yeah. I did think I think one particularly like effective thing that I drew from the film that I think was in the book as well was just this idea of like having, and I think Luke, you were touching on some of this, like having complicated feelings about like your own upbringing and your mother, but she also struggled with a lot of the same things that you're struggling with as a parent now. And like the respect of that. And then ultimately like we'll get to it. But then ultimately the way that the film kind of caps this is she has a daughter. Like she willingly, as far as I know, willingly goes back into this scenario and all the trials and tribulations that are going to come with it. Yeah. And then has a daughter.
Just opened a big can of worms, James. Let's wait to the end because I think that's a good thing to get to the end because that's a big change in where this leaves us. But while we're still in the middle, I think we should talk about the dinner scene because we get that here. Things are a little different, but kind of the same. We talked about how in the book, like, it was unclear how reliable our narrator is, so we didn't know for sure if these like sort of microaggressions that are going on at this dinner are true, right? Or if it's just like her interpretation of the event. But here they're pretty obvious. I think you already touched on how, I don't know, I can't remember if it was the same way in the book or not, but this felt heavily coded almost into like class. Like not only are these women out of touch with her in a sort of a lifestyle, but also, like, especially one or two of them seem like they're just very rich. So that puts them in a whole separate sort of category, too. And it's interesting. There's a lot of elitism here and kind of snobbery. And I remember that being in the book. But it was interesting how that was coming from the characters who were also very rich and out of touch. And, like, I don't know. I guess I have complicated feelings about that because, like, yes, often those are the people who are the most out of touch. But also, like, literary elitism isn't necessarily exclusive to people who are wealthy. That can sometimes just happen in the art community. And I thought that's more like what Rachel Yoder was getting at, how like certain art is just kind of inherently deemed to be more important. And tying it so closely to class felt to me like it complicated that scene a little bit and made it, I don't know, or maybe uncomplicated it in a certain way. Like it was a little easier to digest of just like, oh, these are out of touch elites in this moment. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I think that I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think it almost like disconnects the fact that they are like fancy New York artists that maybe have made money off of art, who are like snobbish and talking about the different layers of art, because there's that conversation where Amy Adams' character asked the other mother something, right? And that to me, that's that class element to it where it layers it. And that
she's like, oh, my nanny took care of all that.
Exactly. And she's like, oh yes, I kept working and da-da-da-da, my nanny. Oh, and what does she say about her husband? She says, I couldn't do it without his support. And you're like, there's this very clear distinction where it's like, well, you've had a lot of support and you've had a lot of privilege. So
and is that support just money too? Maybe like, I don't know, like affording that nanny.
And so I think in the book, it's like the focus is that there's art
yeah,
snobs.
because it was more it's like my art isn't important to them, and like me wanting to explore motherhood doesn't feel important to them.
Yes, and then in this, it's more of like a class. I don't know, like a highlight on class.
I do think that line about how I could crush a walnut with my vagina, I think that was right out of the book, which is great. I just love her shouting that out in this restaurant.
Was the eating of the burger in the book?
I don't remember. She may have grabbed some food. I don't remember. Did she order a kale salad? I wish I could remember for sure, but
I don't think she did.
I don't know that she did.
I thought in the book that she ordered a bunch of meat for some reason.
Yeah, well, she was already kind of like mid-dog transformation kind of at that point. Yeah.
So I wonder why they would flip it, where she's the kale and she's doing like the Zen cow thing.
Yeah. I thought that the freak out scene was warranted, per the circumstances of people being that like pretentious.
Well, they were definitely being terrible,
like, boxing her out in that way. Yeah. The other thing that's in this section that we have to talk about is the cat. The
death of the cat. Yes. Yeah. So we talked about this a lot last week. I thought this was like the boldest choice that Rachel Yoder made. It was a brutal scene. It was pretty gory, and in my memory of it was like, I think the mother kind of trips on the cat and then grabs a knife and like viciously murders the cat, essentially, like out of like almost like rage or annoyance or just like a animal aggression that kicks in, and then has like a moment of clarity after the fact when she's covered in blood and the entire kitchen's covered in blood of like, what did I do? And it's like after her son comes in and sees what's happened. Very horrifying sequence there, and also like pretty awful, not only for cat lovers but just anybody, like reading about a pet getting killed in this way. It was very clearly the kind of thing I was talking about last week, where I said that like we wanted to lean into the animal zen sort of like live in the moment mentality of dogs, and how like there can be a freedom here. But also there's a lot of stuff about dogs that we sometimes don't want to acknowledge, like the potential for violence that can be there inherently in an animal that doesn't, necessarily follow our standard, our norms, right? And like a beloved dog can kill a cat or could kill another beloved pet, right? Like these things do happen sometimes. They're horrible when they do. And I like that the book like leaned into that. Like we're going to show all aspects of this transformation. She's not just the beloved pet version. She's also all the other stuff that we don't want to talk about or acknowledge as much with animals. So I love that part in the book, and I felt like this was just such a watered down version of that, because it occurs in what we have already seen to maybe be a dream. We're not even 100% sure whether or not this is even something that really happens, where she goes outside and ends up playing with these other dogs or doing whatever with these other dogs. And instead, she walks out and like finds the cat is just like dead on the stoop. And I think like, yes, we hear him refer to the cat later, and we know the cat does die, but like, I don't know. I feel like the movie has given us the out. Like that. Oh, speaking of, I see a dog behind you. If you're not watching on YouTube right now, you're missing out on a dog cameo.
He's like, you talking about me?
Is that Tucker? Is that your dog's name?
This is Tucker. I don't know if he'll scoot over. Okay. Oh, he's shy.
He's like, no, don't put me on camera. So you're talking about dogs in here? And yeah, the movie sort of gives us an out of I think we could just think that the cat like was out and got killed by another animal or got run over or something, right? Like something happened to the cat. We don't even know for sure if it was her.
Yeah.
In the movie, and I don't know, like that was the thing that really sold the book to me. For me, it was like what made that book work, and I was kind of underwhelmed by this moment in the movie.
I read the first time I read it with my friend Robin. I hope she listens. Under the guise of like she had recommended it to me, and it was around like labor and the really like labor at home, right? That was like neither of us are parents, but like that was the guys. And so I remember when the cat thing happens in the book, I remember needing that. I am not condoning violence against animals in any capacity, but her harming her cat made her rage real versus like internal. Mm-hmm. Not that she needed to go that far, but I needed her to go that far within this genre of horror. In the movie, Robin and I went and saw the movie together too. So we went and saw the movie, and the first thing we said when we walked out was, "No cat." No cat scene. I needed the character to get to that point, to make it was like the snapping point. It was the breaking point that made her rage like it's the volcano. Like she broke. Yeah. And I didn't see a break. I didn't see her break. And
the after effects of the son playing or like picking up the body and like saying we're gonna eat it and like all that stuff was like, oh, what have I done? Right? Like what have I am doing to my son potentially? And we don't get that either.
No.
I feel strongly about this part too because like so the out that I think that I'm seeing is even if you buy the magical realism, she was like in a dog form and grabs the cat in like the mouth of a dog, and that's like a very believable thing that could happen, as much as that's a sad thing to happen. But in the book, she is like using opposable thumbs and picking up a cat and using a knife to gut it, and so like there's something else going on there that I think makes it more of like I don't know,
it's more upsetting.
The film kills a cat, but at the same time it's like really leaning into that animalistic thing. But I like the sort of fringe that the character in the book is living in, where it's like animalistic rage is coming out and like maybe that is like akin to a dog attacking a cat, something like that, but it's done as a human would kill a cat.
She's a human. Know? That's a good point, that she is a human when she does it.
Yeah.
That being changed changes the way this feels.
Last bit of summary here. When her husband questions these developments, Mother lashes out at him over his insensitivity to her needs. He tells her he is disappointed in her for shutting him down. They agree to a trial separation while she works on an art project. Mother realizes that her mother could also transform into a dog, and that her son's rebellious and willful nature indicates that she has passed the animal trait to her son. The separation allows Mother to harmonize her animalistic and artistic identities through an art exhibit. Eventually, Mother rekindles her relationship with her ex-husband as the two finally come to an understanding, reuniting the family. Sometime later, Mother gives birth to her second child, a daughter. So I do want to say there's a bit in there that's a little bit of reading between the lines as far as like this is like a curse passed down from mother to daughter to son kind of thing. But interesting analysis on it, I guess. I don't know that that's confirmed.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that it's confirmed. We do see a scene where I think she's remembering seeing her mother outside running on all fours.
Yeah,
but like
for sure.
How do we know that that's a real memory? I don't know if like that's even something we can necessarily believe. But yeah, there's a lot to get into here that's very interesting. They separate. I didn't get the sense that they actually got a divorce. So it's interesting that it says ex-husband there, because I thought they were still married and they were just like living apart.
Same.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But like, yeah, I like the separation for this version of the husband. He needed it. And I will admit, like, I got teary during this movie. And I believe, because I'm trying to remember exactly when it happened. I think it was during the exhibit and seeing the art. I thought it was powerfully done. I thought the paintings were effective. And then it was some of the like apology from him, which I thought was well written. And so like as much as it emotionally moved me, I'm not sure I like that she took him back after that. I don't know. It was good that he apologized and that he recognized that he hadn't been seeing her and that was the problem. But the idea that all is forgiven now, let's move on and eventually have another kid together. I wasn't there personally. I don't know.
I absolutely did not want them to get back together. I think this is such a massive change from the story. And what I drew from the story is like these things have impact in relationships, and like the idea that they get back together, like and do I think that the character could grow? Yes, but I'm in this context of this story, it, as Shayna said earlier, it feels like a bow is being tied on the story. It feels like this is the happy ending that's palatable for everyone. But I thought the point of the story was one that like women aren't to be contained, and like this is the like she has realized something within herself that will fundamentally change her and how her outlook on the world, and this person just doesn't fit within that any longer. And I felt like that was the point of the story, and that was what was so affecting to me, and it caused me to like think about my own life and think about like, you know, check myself. In general, if I'm reading it, I'm responding to it from my perspective and getting a new look at what it is like possibly to be in that kind of scenario. And it's like that empathy thing, right? Like I'm much more empathetic to this scenario and this idea of like motherhood being important and how it's so under celebrated in society. And like I felt like the story in the film got there, but the story in the book was so much more affecting because it's like this is what what her independence looks like. And that's like specific to her story. It's not all women's story. It's not all men's story. It's like, this is a story that's worth telling because it's different, and because it's unique, and because it is like, powerful. And that's like the thing that's going to stick with you. Whereas this like tight bow at the end makes me feel like, oh, it's happy. And, you know, she transformed into a dog and stuff, but everything's gonna be fine.
I love everything that you both just said. When we talk about the apology, I just want to make sure, are we talking about when they're at her art exhibit where people are leaving and they're celebrating her, and she goes, he's helping her clean up. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And she
Nice
goes,
job.
What did you think?
Bare minimum, right?
Bare minimum. And she goes, what did you think? And he goes, or she's like, how are you? And he goes, honestly, not good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, and then the next line too.
I didn't get it.
I didn't get it.
Worst thing you could say to somebody at your art
You didn't
exhibit.
get it?
I didn't get it.
But that's not what he means, but like it sounds bad.
Right. Yeah.
It's like those videos though where you see like a woman graduating and then the husband proposes.
Oh yeah.
This is literally not your moment. This is not your time to apologize. This is not your time to commandeer this event that I just did. The apology to me fell flat, and he's still doing the same like microaggressions in their relationship. I'm like, couldn't you have waited a day or two to have that conversation? Maybe celebrated her, been like, good job, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I
didn't. Yeah, you're right. The context of it really does matter. I think I had interpreted that it was fully over. I didn't see other people still walking around or anything. But still, it's not a great moment for that.
Still...
I agree. I thought it was well written. It felt heartfelt. Once he got past the I didn't get it moment, because I think the I get it moment, my hackles were raised immediately. But then he's like, I didn't get that this was something you were going through all along. I didn't see it. And I was like, okay, yes, thank you for acknowledging that. And clearly that's what she wanted him to do. But like what you were saying, James, like, I feel like they wanted to get this bow put on it so that they could have this second child. And that's where it goes awry for me, because like I'm okay with them in this current moment having the kiss. But then like we don't have to like define what it means going forward. Did they actually get back together? That can be ambiguous. We can kind of debate whether or not that means they're going to be back together. But it becomes confirmed when we get him in the tent at the end and we get the moment with the birth at the end, right? That's confirmed they got back together. Everything is kind of returned to status quo, as you said. Whereas I like the idea of like, maybe there's like an apology and an acknowledgement, but like maybe stuff is still fucked up and broken between them and it won't ever be repaired. I would have been more comfortable, I think, with that is where we're leaving this relationship. Because I can also see like, we don't want this to become a story about like, we should all divorce our husbands. Like, I don't know. Like, I can see like maybe they didn't want to go there too. Like, if you leave it as just a fuck this guy, he gets divorced. It's a little too clean too in that sense. Like, I like it being a little messier.
I think where the book focused on identity versus optimism and like a closure, it was more about like her experience internally and her journey with her own identity and who she is with art as a parent in her career. The good, the bad, the ugly, without like a clean little bow. Whereas the movie, which James, you called out in one of their interviews, was more focused on like, yes, and let's have a bow on it and have it be an optimistic closure versus focusing just on the ugly parts of it, you know?
Yeah. There's a part of me that thinks like maybe Adams and Heller are pulling their own marriages, like their own biases from their marriages and saying like, well, I don't want the story to end that way because my experience hasn't been one of like ejecting or pushing away that far. It's like one of like reconciling. And for me, I was like, it just to me doesn't ring as
It's interesting because
powerful.
like again, like this doesn't happen in the book. Like they don't get separated in the book at all. But because there's a lot of changes with that relationship. But one of the things that I think you keep touching on, the identity focus, I think is a good one because even in that now this isn't an official thing that you're reading the synopsis, but I think it does line up with how the movie feels in the sense that she doesn't become Nightbitch. She has these moments of that, right? But like in the book, like she is exclusively referred to as Nightbitch at a certain point. Like that becomes her name. And then when she does her art, like as much as I was moved by the art exhibition in the film, the book, like she is the art. She embodies it. Her possible transformation, she like kills rabbits. And it's controversial. And people are like trying to get it stopped because they're like, you can't be doing this show. And it's like, and she even says like, yeah, it's not going to be for everyone, but like the people who were there like had an experience. And it sounds like shocking. It sounds visceral, and it sounds daring in a way that I think is very correlative to the book and how it felt for me. And this sort of watered down version that we get here is nice. It seems like something that a lot of I don't know, suburban moms would love to go hang out at this little art exhibit. And like, I think maybe they acknowledge that a little bit with one of the people saying something about it being like nice for the suburbs. But there's some truth to that I'm afraid to say. But like, I kind of miss the more daring, strange, weird exhibit that we get. That we get at the end, where she has like fully embraced this role. And like and I think the book even ends on the final scene from the show where it's like her son is in a spotlight, and it's like this impossible sort of creation of hers, like it's impossible that he even exists. And I forget the last, like there's something, the lines are around that at the end. I can't remember them verbatim, but you're presenting something that feels unresolved, and it feels strange, and it feels powerful, and yet we don't know how we feel about it. And that's like the whole point of her art at the end is like she's showing the violence of motherhood. She's showing the violence of having to go through the act of raising him. But also there's this connection. There's this magic there. And it's not all like neatly tied together. And I don't know that this mother in the book has another kid. And in fact, I think probably not. I mean, it's possible, but like the embracing of having a second child really puts your like thumb on the scale of like, this was all worth it and I'm going to do it again. Whereas I felt like that, like Nightbitch is like, this was crazy. And like, I went through it and I'm going to like embrace it. But like, I don't know that person is ready to do it again.
I actually don't think that Nightbitch, the book, is about what we're learning now for the future. I think the reason, I talked about this earlier, I feel like the audience shifted between the movie and the book. The book celebrates rage. It celebrates the quote that you read in the book podcast and the one that's read in the book around the fire that's inside. Mm-hmm. That's so allegorical for so many things, especially with femme rage. Where you're like, there's this anger of like not being heard and being overpowered and like doing what society tells us we have to do, and the anger of that. And I think that is so tangible and digestible to so many people, regardless of your gender. And that's what I think Nightbitch is about your identity and accepting your rage. Not about how we do it again and if we do it again and have more kids.
Yeah.
I think that the movie is a different audience and a different tone. It's those next steps. Like, yeah, and I do it again because I love motherhood. Yeah. It's worth it.
It does like literalize the line about the violence of giving birth, because we see it. It's like a violent moment. There's blood. Like, it's like, oh, this is a violent act. So it has that going for it, I guess.
I felt like the ending in the book too is like, that's the actualization. That's the final transformative thing where Nightbitch has decided, I'm going to reject what society wants for me. And like, I felt like in getting back with the husband in the film, it's like, this is what society is expecting of you in a sense. So I felt like it was losing some of the messaging there. But I do think with like the progressing, there's one thing that I think that the film talks about that we haven't yet, that it's like encapsulated by the birth of the daughter at the end too. It's like celebrating the line where Nightbitch or the mother says, we're like gods, basically, like we create life, and like celebrating like how powerful that is, and all of that, and like celebrating that portion, I think, is what the film is doing, where as Shayna, as you said, like the like rage and everything else that's so like inherent, and like that like pushing back against that, like the society's attempt to like domesticate and suppress and hold and like, you know, choose what happens to her in a lot of different ways.
There's a distinction there too, though. It's like, I agree, it's like we're having like this powerful godlike metaphor, but like we've lost the central metaphor of the book, which is turning into a monster, which is kind of like what she talks about too, like it's turning me into a monster. And by the end, Nightbitch is like kind of a scary monster at the same time as everything else we've been talking about. And that like her embracing that monstrous identity is what is so cool about that book at the end, I think. One point I will point out too is like, I did wonder how things would feel different if her son had been a daughter all along, and how that would change the dynamic of the book. Like it kind of is essential that it's a boy, because it's like another male, I guess, that she's like kind of serving in a way, and is not going to have the same experience as her. Like this isn't something that he's going to grow up and have, I guess. If it had been a daughter, I can just like, if I'm thinking back through the book, like things would have felt a little different. Like there would have been like a connection there, and like, I don't know, it is an interesting thought experiment. Like, how does this book change if it's a daughter instead of a son? But it's almost too big to get into at the end of this movie. Like, I don't know. I don't like its inclusion here. I don't think it was the way to go.
So I know that I feel like we've been pretty heavy with our praise and criticism and just comparison. I don't even know if I would even go as far as to call it criticism. But what we do here is at the end of our coverage of book and film, we talk about which one was better. What's our favorite out of the two? And it doesn't, it doesn't have to have a lot of pressure associated with it. It's just how we're feeling today.
Yeah.
I will.
It's highly subjective, but definitive.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Luke, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. I'll go
and
first.
then I'll respond, and then Shayna, you will respond as well. But you may be a tiebreaker. We'll see. We'll see where we both land.
Okay. So as much as I have been critical, like performances, Amy Adams killed it in this movie. I think there's lots about it that is working. I did tear up during the movie, so it definitely was working on an emotional level for me. I thought a lot of the the subject matter is powerful and profound. All that being said, I think I've laid out a lot of reasons why I think the book experience is more sharp. It's a little more daring, and for me a little more memorable. And those things are going to make it more effective to me. And just where I'm at with art and like the kind of stuff I like to consume. That may not be true for everybody, but for me, I if I'm going to recommend one of these two, I'm definitely going to go book. I think it's the more interesting piece of art. As much as like I thought it was a fine adaptation. I think this is one where I'm going to give it to the book.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself watching this film, and I think it's one that I'm appreciative that like there's like some really great messaging in the film, and I think like there's some great technique that being employed here. I pointed out a few of the scenes that I liked that I thought were effective, and the way that like the medium, the chaos of the situation in some ways can be shown, and some of the body horror worked for me. It was like, there was a bit of like nastiness, especially when that tail's getting pulled out and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
that was gross.
Well, I don't feel like some of the metaphors track perfectly as I felt like they did in the book. I felt like seeing this and knowing that this is going to like broaden the reach of it'll reach a broader audience, and in that way may send people back to the book. I appreciated watching it. I actually liked it, and I would recommend it as a film if people weren't going to read the book. But in this case, I'm definitely taking the book. I just thought it was a much more provocative story, and one that like I found to be like really it's with strong messaging and perspective, which I always appreciate in a story like this.
Well, there's no tie to break because I too agree with everything everything that you've said. I will watch any movie, anything that Amy Adams is in. I love everything that she does. She is so brilliant, and she's so good at playing like really raw characters, like not like taking the makeup off and just like being human. And I really respect that in a lot of the roles that she plays. The movie Nightbitch grossed me out, and I thought that, I mean, James, you said it, like if the person's not going to read the book but is interested to get like a snapshot or a taste of Nightbitch, then the adaptation can do that. I just felt like the book was so, honestly, I feel like the book is quite brilliant. I think that it's very lonely and isolating, and I think it does such a good job at highlighting like what like a single parent at home is experiencing when it comes to, I don't know, we could count how many times I mentioned labor in the last two of these, but just like the labor disparity between a stay-at-home parent and the parent that goes to work. I think that story is so important. Like my mom was a single parent, and so like navigating that world just as a single parent, adding somebody to the mix as well that's not even present. I just think she does such a good job in the book of highlighting those examples, and it's so provocative. It's very weird, and the whole time I'm a little scared of like what's gonna happen, and that's what I look for in a book. So I'm voting book.
All right, so we are unanimous. Shayna, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a delight. Where can people find you if they want to follow you online? I know you have a TikTok and a Bookstagram kind of stuff that you engage with. So do you have accounts like that people could follow?
Yeah, you can follow me at Baddie Coda on TikTok or Instagram, or you can find me at...
I'll note that's with 3 T's. I'll put it in the show notes below.
3
T's in the Baddie.
yes, Baddie Coda from Fern Gully. Or you can find me at Parallel Worlds.
That's right. Yeah, Parallel Worlds Bookshop here in Portland, Oregon, which is great. And I think you broke news on our last episode getting expanded, which I'm very excited about. So, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. We should do it again.
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks, Shayna. It was so nice to meet you.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
So stick around for the very end of the episode. We're going to announce our next project. But if you enjoyed this episode and you enjoy our coverage of Nightbitch with Shayna, let us know in the form of a rating and review on whatever app you chose to listen on. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to like the video you're watching and subscribe to our channel.
And be sure to connect with us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the social media platforms, at Ink2Film on all of those.
Blue Sky as well, yeah. If you'd like to support this podcast in another way, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Ink2Film. Over there, you're going to be able to get access to a bunch of bonus content, including a montage of little mini interviews we're releasing very soon. Will be out by the time you're hearing this, of us interviewing former guests who were at Worldcon with us. So that's an exclusive video on our Patreon you're going to want to check out. Also, you have the ability to vote on upcoming projects, which is a little teaser for what we're about to announce because our next project was actually chosen by the patrons. So patreon.com/Ink2Film, and we'd love to have your support.
And thank you to Ross Bugden for the use of our intro and outro music.
All right, so all that's left to do is to announce what we're doing next. It won the poll. It came down to 3 titles. It was Akira, Romeo and Juliet, which actually came in second, and then the winner, which is Starship Troopers. Which is one that we've been talking about doing for a long time. So I'm excited to finally get to it. Another Verhoeven film. We've done a Verhoeven one in the past, so it'll be fun to return to him.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. Like even Akira, like we've been talking about doing that for so long now. Yeah. So that'll be one that eventually we get to. Romeo and Juliet would be a lot of fun.
That would have been really cool too. Yeah.
Starship
Troopers, I was happy if any of those won, but
yeah, Starship Troopers is going to be a fun one though.
Very fun. All right. So all that's left to say is until next time.
Keep adapting.